Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. These are verses of the book that makes things clear. Tilka ayatu al-kitabul mubin. These are the verses of the book that makes things clear. Mubin is something that's unambiguous, is clear, is focused. You don't have to guess at it because it's very clear and specific. We shall relate to you some of the story of Moses and Pharaoh, setting forth the truth for people who will believe. Pharaoh exalted himself in the land and divided its people into castes. One group of them he persecuted, slaying their sons and keeping their women alive. For certain, he was one who sows corruption. Kana min al-mufsidin, that he was a mufsidin. That means an evildoer, a troublemaker, those type of personalities. But it was our will to bestow our favor upon those who were oppressed in the land, and to make them leaders, and to make them the ones to inherit the land, and to establish them securely on the earth, and to let Pharaoh, Haman, and their host experience at their hands the very things against which they were taking precautions. This is from Surah Qasas, that is Surah 28, and this is a statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Kitab al-Mubin. And some of it says, these are the verses of the book that makes things clear. The surah begins with these three separate letters, Ta, Sin, Mim, to make clear that it is from letters like those of the Quran is composed. Its verses are of a greatly superior quality and of much finer import than what is normally composed by people. These are the verses of the book which makes things clear. This is the book. It is not the work of ordinary people, for no one can produce its like. It is a revelation that God relates to his servants, reflecting his incomparable ability and the truth that is at the heart of everything. Allah makes large or small. We shall relate to you some of the stories of Moses and Pharaoh, setting forth the truth for people who will believe. In other words, some things in this are not scientific, and some of these things are metaphorical, and this prototype story of Musa alayhi salam is one of the stories in the Quran that gives you a complete idea about a period of history, about the imagination that people can have and how they can live out that great imagination. It is then to the believers that this book is addressed. So it's addressed to the believers, because if you're not a believer, you can read Quran, Hadith, Tafsir, and you just won't get it. You'll be able to talk it, but it won't be in your heart. It'll be right here. It is meant to remold and cultivate them, pointing out their way for them and showing them the code to implement. The stories related in this surah is meant for the believers because they are the ones who will benefit from it. This direct relation from Allah imparts an air of special care taken of believers, making them feel worthy and important. How could they fail to realize this when it is Allah Almighty, when it is God Almighty that relates his book to his messenger for their own sake. Being believers, they have the necessary quality to receive such sublime care for people who will believe. It is this very beginning describing the difficult circumstances in which Musa a.s. was born, powerless among a people who had long been persecuted and humiliated by Pharaoh. That serves as the main theme of this surah. It shows the hand and the divine will working openly without any apparent human medium, striking directly at the root of tyranny and injustice. It thus gives support and empowerment to the oppressed. This is a concept that the small and weak Muslim minority of Mecca needed to fully understand. It was quality, it's important that the powerful majority was made well aware of it too. You know, during the time of the Hijrah, the angel came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or it was a vision from Allah, said, are you homesick? He said, yes. And the Quran said, don't worry, I'm going to bring you back to all of this. You know, you got to remember when you're leaving your home, and you can relate this to Musa alayhi salam. When he went into exile, he left everything behind. You know, and when you leave everything behind, you know, since I've experienced this, I'll speak from personal experience. When I went overseas, first went to Africa, but when I went to Europe, there was a lot of people there that had been in the type of exile. When I say Europe, I mean Scandinavia. And you could tell when a brother left the country, because he was still in that makeup. If he had one of them little thin ties on from 1961, you could look, you could say that brother left the U.S. in 1961. Because he didn't have a mission, he didn't have a goal. So Pharaoh exalted himself in the land and divided his people into castes. One group of them he persecuted, slaying their sons and keeping their women alive. For certain he was one who sows corruption. But it was our will to bestow our favor upon those who were oppressed in the land and to make them leaders. He wants to give the people who are mustadafin. Istadafah means weak. Daif is a weak hadith. We want to take the people who were weak, and I think I have an ayat that even says it a little better if I can find it. If not, I'll just relate what it says. That Allah wanted to take a people who were considered weak and of no account, and make them heirs, or make them leaders in the land. He wanted to give them aima, leadership. This might be one of them right here. Because that's the subject tonight. As-Sabiqun liberation movement, As-Sabiqun liberation organization. It relates to the call that we talked about in November 2016, that we would issue a call, that we would begin in Oakland, that we would begin a revival of the movement. And that's what we was talking about then. Now it says, some Araf, And we made a people considered weak and of no account, inheritors of the land in both east and west, lands where we sent down our blessings. The fair promise of thy Lord was fulfilled. This thing of weak and no account. This is the way the rich and powerful feel about me and you. That they have no account, they don't own any property, but basically don't run nothing. So Allah wants to take them when this new worldism, this great transition is coming. Allah wants to take them. And one of the things it says, thus God wants to grant the oppressed some of his gifts, which he does not specify, and to change their situation, making them leaders after they have been subjected to other people's leadership. Then it goes on, we will restore him to you and shall make him one of our messengers. Restore him to his mother. We'll get into that, but I might as well mention that. You know, well, I'll get to that by getting to this. And then I'll start putting it all together, what we're talking about here today. We'll just get a little preliminary stuff out of the way. Said Moses, O my sustainer, open up my heart to thy light, and make my task easy for me, and loosen the knot from my tongue, so that they might fully understand my speech, and appoint for me out of my kinfolk one who will help me to bear my burden. Harun, my brother, add thou through him to my strength, and let him share my task, so that together we might abundantly extol thy limitless glory, and remember thee without ceasing. Verily, thou seest all that is within us. He said, thou art granted all that thou asked, O Moses. And indeed, we bestowed our favor upon thee at a time long since past. And of course it was, and throw him into the river, and thereupon the river will cast him ashore, and one who is an enemy unto me and an enemy unto him will adopt him. And thus early I spread my own love over thee, and this is in order that thou might be formed under my own eye. And thou wert under my eye when thy sister went forth and said to Pharaoh's people, shall I guide you unto a woman who might take charge of him? And so we return thee unto thy mother, so that her eye be glad, and that she might not sorrow any longer. And when thou camest of age, thou didst slay a man, but we did save thee from all grief, although we tried thee with various trials. And then thou didst sojourn for years among the people of Midian, and now thou hast come here as ordained by me, O Moses, for I have chosen thee for my own service. It's a big deal here. This is so full of things, we're only going to touch on a few things. Musa al-Salam is asking for certain things. Now, this right here, tonight, is a call to the people of Oakland. And the main call issues to a group of people who missed the first passage. These are people who are basically my son's ages. That means from 55 to 45. Your generation is a special generation. I want you to think about Oakland. I want you to think about when you guys grew up, how nice it was to grow up in Oakland, California. I want you to realize the community flavor, the power that Oakland exuded, and how good you felt just growing up and living in Oakland. That feeling that you had will relate to what I'm going to put forward tonight. Put forward tonight means that I'm issuing a call. I didn't just come up with this. That I wrote this in specific. This is decades old. This is nothing new. In fact, this is what we're talking about right now. Let's call it 40 years old. Just in detail, it's 10 or 15 years old. The actual call went out on 11/26/16 when we talked about As-Sabiqun liberation movement, that As-Sabiqun was a model of longevity, and the As-Sabiqun liberation movement would begin in Oakland and here. As-Sabiqun liberation organization that would liberate the people in this country from psychological oppression and inferiority complexes, and liberate the agenda of Muslims in America from the West. It was stated clear in our current and future programs, which we will read from in a minute. The idea that we're putting forward tonight is that we're issuing a call to you. This is a call. Before we issue the call, I'm going to tell you why we're issuing the call now and why we're issuing the call about Oakland and why we're issuing the call to you. You've always been the target, our target, from day one. You could read all our literature. You could go back to the CDs, and they weren't CDs, and they was tapes about Message to the Young Bloods. That was 1986. When we passed out free, it had 8 tapes in it talking about management, organization, discipline, all of those things that it take for a people to survive. That was when y'all was coming up. I couldn't teach you about dope dealing, but I could teach you the survival skills. So I distributed those. I still have a few now. I distributed those tapes right there in East Oakland for y'all to have. But y'all are a special crew. Number one, I'm issuing the call now. That's right. Mr. Oakland, Big Hank, abdul-alim Musa, that whole process. Y'all missed the first go round because you was too young. Now, you couldn't live out the life we live because the police that brought drugs and crime into Oakland big time, they handed it to us, my generation. I'll be specific. They handed it to me. But I kind of, as usual, if y'all ever saw that movie Divergent, Divergent is a type of person that's just divergent. In this movie Divergent, the little girl, the people who knew, they told her, don't tell anybody. The little girl did everything right. If y'all remember that movie, she got out of everything right. So don't you tell nobody, you just say this, that, or the other. She knew she was a divergent. She don't fit into the thing. And everything that's hard for everybody else was simple for her. There was no problem. If it's cold, you can just turn that on and off up there. Yeah, because, okay. Now, I'm not putting myself in this because I just want to be famous or anything like that. I'm putting myself in it because that's my job. What I'm talking to you about tonight is actually my job. The only job that I ever wanted. And I've been wanting this job for a long time, for 50 years. 1968, 50 years ago, we started on this mission. What was it? It was a mission that was a mixed mission. Now here's what happened. The black movement was gaining power. They had to destroy the black movement. So they looked out for people in the neighborhood in Oakland and all over America that would be good workers for them. So I was selected by the government to be their main man. And they made sure I kept good supplies and everything. Within little or no time, I had taken over Oakland, especially East Oakland. Now you gotta remember, East Oakland was a middle-class area at that time. West Oakland was where all the pimps and gangsters and hustlers, a few gangsters and pimps lived in East Oakland, but they all hustled out in North Oakland and West Oakland. Therefore, they left East Oakland as a virgin territory. From First Avenue all the way to 105th, right? From the estuary to Piedmont in the hills. They left that all to us. Let's say they left it to me, and I organized it. The purpose was to destroy Oakland because of its political power and because of the message coming out of Oakland. So that's what I was hired to do by the government. The only thing that went wrong for them was, number one, I was already black conscious. Number two, the reason they was diverting me because I was black conscious, and they thought if I got involved in drugs and all of that stuff, then I would be no more problem. So I sensed this, and I show you this all the time. At this period, this is the black conscious look. This is pure Black Panther uniform, 100%, right? That's 1968. I did a study, and I said, what happens to these boys here? What's going to happen to them? I said, well, they're all going to get killed, mostly because the white man going to knock all the niggas over like that. Of course they did. So I developed a disguise. That's my disguise right there. That's the sharpest nigga in the United States in those days. There's no doubt about it. Okay? All the paraphernalia of a rich, unconscious Negro gangster. All the cars, so probably I had 8 or 9 of these at least. Something like it, something like that. That was the disguise. It's the only problem for them. Any of y'all from East Oakland, I want you to remember, is 73rd Avenue and East 14th, or now they call it International Boulevard. And remember now the big church on the other side of East 14th that used to be the bowling alley. Okay, now on the other side of the street from the bowling alley was one of my main drug houses on Wellington. On the other side, next to that was my main house, was behind Jerry's pawn shop. Y'all remember that? You was old enough, y'all was 5, 6 years old. Jerry's pawn shop. Next to that was the Black Panther headquarters in East Oakland, where they distributed papers, It was the office of the Black Panther Party. We were all right there. Let me explain to you what was going on in East Oakland. We were black conscious people. We didn't believe in shooting it out with the police unless you had a chance. You know, I mean, if you're going to shoot it out. If he got an army of 1,000 men, and I got an army of 400 men, I'll fight him, because I think, if I do right, if I strategize, we got a chance. But if I had 5 men, and he had 1,000, I'd wait on it. I'd just pick off a few here and there, and then build up and build up. And when I get 400, 500 people, I may say, hey man, you can't mess around here no more, this is my shot. And I believe superior tactics and the combination of weapons used could beat him. What we did was, we supported the black movement. The black liberation movement, we supported financially in Oakland and consciously. With money. On the meantime, I want y'all to think back when you was kids, no wonder you were a little older, around 60, or if you around a little in the 50s, early 50s, you ask your parents about us in East Oakland. A lot of things you were seeing that looked one way was another. If you just looked at us without thinking, you would think we was just a regular crew of gangsters. But think about it, we were totally different than Felix Mitchell and all the other homeboys. I want you to think about it. Why were we different? Number one, Felix and them did a lot of, I don't say they did a lot of, they had a lot of different things going on. We didn't have none. You cannot, and I'm telling you, you're in Oakland right now. When you get this, I'm going to distribute this. As soon as we duplicate it, I'm going to distribute this in Oakland next week. You have a chance to go over everything I'm telling you tonight. Because, see, I'm calling on y'all. See, because y'all are the ones that's going to make the rebellion. Let's not call it rebellion. Y'all are the ones that's going to make the transition. Here's why. In my crew, they made it big. You could sell matchboxes of weed in those days and drive a Cadillac almost. So they needed us, so they gave us a good product at a good price. Because they needed us to turn everybody out. Okay, we turned them out, but we used the money correctly. Now when y'all came along, by the late 70s and let's say the 80s, let's start at 80 for y'all's generation. Y'all would be 15, 16, 17, 18, the 1980 period. By that time, y'all didn't have a chance to get big like we did during our time. Why? Because they didn't need no more dealers to destroy the black community. Because by 1980, it was destroyed. So, think about your generation. None of y'all got big, super big, like a few of them got a little money. But as time went on, where are the big niggas now? Where are the big niggas in the early 2000s? Where are the big niggas in the late 1990s? They didn't need them anymore. They didn't allow y'all, every one of y'all, your lives reflect the same life that both of my sons live. Every time y'all got a few dollars ahead, they would gaffle you up and take you off to jail. All of y'all are receivers. All of y'all that are my son's age and Oakland brothers are still alive. Number one, you're still alive. That's very good. Be thankful of that. because they didn't have your name written down on the live list. They had your name listed on the dead, DOA, dead on arrival list. But y'all survived. You survived for a purpose. That's why the Quran is talking about people that Allah blessed, a people that was considered weak, oppressed, and of no value. You guys, all the stuff came out about y'all, Minister Society. They could shoot all the laws that they came out. All the guys of y'all age in prison for life. They came out with 3 strikes when y'all was getting in your 20s and 30s. 3 strikes is out in the 90s. Stuff like that. They warehoused y'all. Now, I saw a few of y'all easing by when I was out there before. And I said, well, it's time. It's time to what? It's time to issue the call. Now, I wrote this stuff years ago. It ain't nothing to me. I just pulled it out. I said, well, it's the time. It's time to issue the call. The call for the As-Sabiqun liberation movement in North America. Okay, so actually this is your time. You spent most of your time in prison. Very few of y'all, I remember y'all easing by. I remember I saw y'all hanging out, your hey, Mr. Bean, and y'all would be here today and gone tomorrow. And you would be gone for 4 and 5 years in a while. Now, few of y'all are out. So I'm issuing a call to y'all specifically. Now the call also goes to some of my generation. And this is the attitude. When you issue a call, it's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the French Foreign Legion. You could go join the Foreign Legion. I don't care if you was a murderer or whatever, they would give you a new identity and they'd send you off to Algeria or somewhere to fight in the French Foreign Legion. So back in the old days, when anybody was having big trouble, they would go join, anywhere in the world, they could go join the French Foreign Legion. And you were safe, you got a new identity and everything. That's kind of our attitude. What we're saying is this: don't worry about what you was into. Don't worry about what you did in the past. That don't count. What counts now is where we go from here. We're talking about a whole revival of when I look at y'all now, I'm 73 years old, y'all are 53 years old, and 43, 48, and all that. Y'all's health is worse than mine, tell the truth. Y'all been partying, y'all been getting high since you was 12 years old. I remember y'all running around there. High as a kite. So now you've had a chance, now you gotta look at it. See, there's purpose. What we're talking about is a whole new purpose. We talk about knocking the white man's plan out of the box, just like the Quran is talking about Musa alayhi salam. That Allah wanted to be gracious to those people who were mustadafin. They were weak and oppressed. And he wanted to give them something called a'imma,